A bit of quirky thinking this morning as my home city of Brighton wakes up. Chairs are being clattered out here at my favourite cafe, FringeReview's informal headquarters since 2006, Pavilion Gardens Cafe. And the quirky thinking is around two words: optimism and pessimism, and how they play into your Fringe experience and potentially the success of your visit to things like the Edinburgh Fringe, but other Fringe festivals, Camden Fringe, Brighton Fringe, Adelaide Fringe, lots of other Fringe festivals. And as usual, I focus on Edinburgh because it's the largest one, and if any challenges ever play out at any Fringe festival, they pretty much always play out at the Edinburgh Fringe. So the notional title of this particular morning video is around the dangers of being too positive or too optimistic, and too negative or too pessimistic at the Fringe. And let me just give two examples and then just let you ponder that and decide how you sit with these quirky ideas. Now, being optimistic at the Fringe is a great thing to do. We're often under a lot of pressure, we can feel a bit down, and a bit of optimism doesn't harm anybody. Quite often being pessimistic at Fringe festivals, which are sometimes so chaotic and there are so many unknowns, is in a way it's a kind of realism to assume the worst and then get surprised positively or delighted. What do I mean by that? It's simply this: we're in social situations, we're wanting the media to come, we're going to have conversations with arts industry people. It could be we're just coming to visit to see some shows and we're there with friends and family and there's too much to choose from, everything's expensive, we're under a lot of pressure just to get things done. We often lose mobile phones and technology if we're not a bit careful. That's what happens in the chaos of very busy big events. So here's an example of being too optimistic, and these examples seem to play out all the time. People are really hopeful, that's a good thing to be. You've got a Facebook page, and the Facebook page has got your show listed, and it's already showing that 800 people are maybe going. It might even show that 300 people are definitely going, and you're delighted. You don't look too much into the details, and so you tell everybody we've already got about 300 people going, and of course about 3 people show up, because these are just people giving you a thumbs up. They're being optimistic with you, they don't want you to be disappointed. And as you probably know, I've written an article called Facebook Non-Commitment. It applies to all the other social media channels. Is I'm going on Facebook means pretty much nothing. And you'll notice that sometimes if you have a party and you wonder why a few people have come, and the reason is because they only committed to going with their fingertips and not their feet. And that particularly happens with events. I was just at an event in Brighton a couple of days ago where 18 people had shown up. In the end, in the room there were 8 people, and 3 of those hadn't even booked. So the 18 people that had booked that didn't show up, or maybe just a few of them did, led to a feeling of somewhat of disappointment, because committing particularly to free events means nothing, and that's the danger of being over optimistic. Very similarly, in Edinburgh you might be flyering and there will be a lot of people nodding, going, yeah, I'll come to that. They've taken your flyer, even your free ticket, and none of them show up. Other things have come up. So there's a real danger that over optimism simply gets you disappointed, and is just not connected to the reality of people not really committing very much in these big events where everybody's clamouring for the same audience and there's just not enough people. So I wouldn't get into a place where realism is seen as somehow depressive or boring. It's not. Realism is a really important thing at the Fringe, and optimism is a lovely thing. It can be energizing, but that's not the same as being a bit kind of crazy optimistic or simply off the planet, which is a good term here, and that won't do you any good either. So just be careful of optimism, because it actually can become a bit toxic. Similarly, pessimism can be toxic at the Fringe, but in a different way. Pessimism is a default for people who feel insecure, they don't know, and for those people their behaviour therefore is to kind of accuse reality of failing them. And so pessimism is always saying this isn't going to work, people don't like my work, no one's coming, all the reviews are going to be terrible. When you read a review that's got good and bad comments and there's some nice quotes, all you're fixating fixated on as a showmaker or a director or writer is the bad stuff that was said, and actually quite often the bad stuff is just good constructive criticism. It can obsess you, and don't forget, if you keep clicking on a review, that helps it climb up, and so every time you're worried it's sitting at the top of the search engines, it's largely because you keep clicking on it. So getting lost in pessimism is toxic because two things result from that. One is you simply lose the ability to see the good that's going on. You completely defeat the invitations in the world around you to engage with the positive stuff. You no longer hear the good news, you no longer give it any weight whatsoever, and so pessimism surrounds you and finally takes you over. But that has an impact on the people around you too, and we're in conversations, and if you're starting to be the person that always is moaning, is always being seen as down on something, if particularly your cast might avoid you, you just might find that when you walk into a room and smile, people turn away, because what they don't want is another depressing conversation. They might be feeling a bit down and you're the last thing that they need. There's also a real danger when we need to be creative and solve problems that your group forms around people who are only pessimistic, and so you just don't get the optimism needed to be creative and open up ways you can solve problems and turn things around. You become a kind of victim support group. And yet pessimism can also be realism, where it's raining really heavily and it might just be that people aren't going to take your flyers, and so what you might be right to go, let's just be realistic, we may not have a big audience tomorrow, and then you can just go into the mode of, well, let's enjoy the audience we have. That'll give us a bit of time to do some more online promotion. This could be the day where we all go out to dinner in the evening because we're going to be feeling a bit down. Let's cheer ourselves up. And acknowledging pessimism and using pessimism selectively, which is to maybe overcome being too optimistic, and saying, look, what we probably need to do here is up our online promotion, which we haven't done for a while, because that might sell more tickets than being out and about with our flyers getting wet. You can probably see from this that at the Fringe and in the Fringe context, there's a danger that the pendulum swings too far in one direction or the other, where the pessimists just end up in a spiral downwards, and people around you that don't want that pessimism kind of move away from you. You can end up feeling a bit alone. But where optimism becomes hype, believing your own publicity, and all that can lead to is disappointment. So somewhere sitting in the middle is realism, and I think a bit like adding the right spices to a meal that needs a bit more flavour. You can sometimes give it a good dose of optimism, or just a little pinch of optimism, and sometimes what you can do is you can take down unrealistic expectations and just allow yourself to look into the shadows sometimes, but just to see what insights that you can gain. The Fringe is very polarised. There does seem to be a sense of being extreme, of swinging between winning and losing, happy and sad. And unless it's in your personality to enjoy that swing, it'll start to tire you out. So this is just an invitation to be aware of too much optimism or too much pessimism, and maybe find that balance that will be more healthy for you and give you a better experience at the Fringe.